Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday night show and share at Knox Makers. We're glad you all are here, and we also welcome all the people on the interwebs through the ether, especially Tracy's parents, who I know are watching. Can't wait to meet them. I hear they're lovely people. But aside from that, we have a lot of things to show tonight. So I can't hear. I'm deaf. I'm old. So let's just go ahead and get started. First, we have Victor, who is going to show us a 3D print robot.
Sorry, I got to be able to see my notes, and I'll try to keep it to... Okay, is there a way to change the iris on that guy, or?
Zoom out a little bit.
Huh.
That way it should focus.
Turn the brightness down a little bit here.
Turn the light off.
Oh, that would help, yeah. Where's the light? That's not it. That's that.
Well, we turned the lights off. Yeah, give it a minute.
What's the
Where's the light button?
light button for this?
Turn the projector back on first.
It's warming back up. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Lamp. Okay, well, that makes sense.
Lamp.
All right. That's an auspicious beginning there. Okay, well, anyway. Can we see? Yay, there we go. Okay. Hey, I'm Victor Agreda. I'm kind of new here, obviously, still learning how buttons work. And my son is a computer science major, and before he moved in, I decided that we should build a robot together. Oops, let me start my timer. There we go. As he had been on the Hardin Valley First Robotics team, and I was a mentor, and I kind of got to see how cool it was putting all of these things together. But I didn't want to just put together a remote control robot for conventions, and so I've kind of gotten into cosplay, and I happen to be a Doctor Who fan. So yeah, so those who know K9, I want to build K9 from Doctor Who. This robot is gigantic, like in real life. Tom Baker in the lower right there is a giant human being, and he makes it look, and I was a little kid, I had no idea of scale. This thing is absolutely huge, but it came out in like the 1980s. It's very 80s design. They brought it back briefly for David Tennant's run in like the early to mid 2000s. So that's the idea. There's luckily a very, very smart guy who does like quantum computing stuff as well in the Royal Academy of Engineering. So we're going to make it autonomous. Richard Hopkins is the guy here. He has done a lot of the groundwork in terms of the programming and a lot of the circuitry and whatnot to be able to do that, what components we need. And so he's got this great blog where you can find out more about that. These are the tools that I'm going to be using. We are scaling it down 75% because my house does not have 20-foot wide doorways. And so I'm using mostly this Ultimaker S5. We're using Eco PLA, and there's a lot of worry about that because it's kind of difficult to work with. But I'm also using a Photon S. We're using resin printers, FDM printers. And the model is actually from this fellow right here, Ian Hughes, who does great work. He has cut down an Enterprise and all of these robots so that you can print them on either an Ender 3 or like a 500 by 500 larger format printer. He's got an 11-foot Enterprise that you can print on an Ender 3. It'll take you years to do it, but you can do it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Here's some of the stuff that Ian has made for people, but these are people who actually printed them. He just does the models, and these are folks, that's a full-size Maximilian from the Black Hole. Now, the Eco PLA, I decided to override some of his settings, and that was a bad idea because I wound up with this which is called plateauing. Kind of looks like wood. And so I'm thinking, maybe I can make like a wood version of K9 as well. But this is the current state right now. We've got the visor there, which is actually printed in resin. The rest of this is white PLA, and we can kind of pass this around for you guys to look at. I've got the rest of the pieces and parts up here. The initial print was done on the left where I'm having it lay down like that. And that's with what's called tree supports in Cura, which have gotten a lot better lately. And the difference is incredible. There's almost no plateauing. This is like, but it printed up like this as opposed to flat like that. And the difference is just extraordinary. But Eco PLA, you got to kind of figure out what it's doing. I'm going to wrap this up real quick. My electronics may not work with the visor. I have all these crazy plans to be able to do stuff. And of course, I'm kind of like a kid in a candy store when I started thinking about this. It's like, the 8-year-old who draws this dream house that has like 3 slides and a moon jump on the basement and all this. So these are all the crazy things that I want to put in there. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think the flares and smoke are going to work out. Yeah. But we'll keep you guys posted on how that goes. So any questions?
Will you be using ROS on it? ROS? Robot operating system?
Well, I'm going to be using what the gentleman from England is using, right? So he doesn't use ROS. It's kind of like a custom blend, and it's going to have a combination of Raspberry Pi, Arduino. It's going to depend on the systems. We also might use ROS for the not autonomous mode where we're going to have it for convention stuff where we will have a remote control and you can just go around. But I'm probably not going to do that. I don't know. We're going to play around with it. We've got a couple of prototypes to make. Any other questions? No? All right. Then I'll pass this around. Do what? Yeah.
Very cool, Victor. I can't wait to meet this robot dog when he is complete. Very cool. Next, we have Thea, who has a tablet update. Tablet?
Tablet weaving.
Tablet. It looks like card weaving.
Well, that's different names depending on your geography. This is an update. I brought this in when I first started, and I had 2 different looms. And this one I finally finished. I'll be taking it off and winding the ends after show and share if anybody wants to take a closer look. But I'm actually quite happy with how it turned off. The things I learned, because I have this and one other. Sorry. The outer bands are usually solid and they bracket whatever pattern you're weaving. Make sure that the thread you're weaving with matches. Otherwise, the edges just look poorly done, let's say. This one, I have them all blue. The other one, I was using green and an off-white, and you can see the difference on the edges. The other thing on this, when I originally started, the loom itself had like a 3-inch expansion joint, because as you weave, your thread goes from flat to these small curves, and now that it's done, my expansion joint is fully contracted. So if you're thinking about building one, and I know a couple of people have talked about it, make sure you include an expansion joint and start with it expanded. And then it'll contract as you take up the slack in your weaving. I started with 2. This one was a continuous warp where you can see the ends meet and it's one continuous piece. The other one was just a start to finish with kind of a spool on the back. I found I much prefer this. When I get the other one done, that'll either be free to a good home or it originally came out of the scrap yard and it'll go back to the scrap yard. This is one I just bought, and it's actually for inkle weaving, which uses a header system. and it's not quite compatible with cards, you end up not using 2 of the spindles because that's what the heddles tie to. But I'm gonna use this as a template to customize what I want, upsize it and add more pegs, and I'm gonna extend the stability platform so I can clamp it to a table because it's a little wide for the way I tension my pole. And I'm worried that this tiny little one's just gonna keep tipping over on me. So that's an ongoing project. This is all an ongoing project. But I wanted to share the tips that I had definitely figured out. Any questions?
The one you said it's not used for cards, what did they use instead of cards?
You tie a thread heddle. It's a loop here, a loop in the middle, and a loop here, and you pass every other thread through it, and then that gives you your weaving shed because the thread itself is like pulls it up or pulls it down. So yeah, it's much more hands-on. This one, because I did it all one direction, I just kept spinning it, and I could get 3 inches in 20 minutes. Once you got going, I mean, you hit a rhythm while you were watching TV, and it just kept going.
You mentioned the expansion joint. Is that like one end of where
There's a 4-inch bolt right here that this piece pushes against. So I originally started with this 3 inches longer here. And then as I wove and had to adjust my tension, I loosened it up and it contracted. So, any other questions?
That is super cool, Thea. Next we have Keith with a Native American style flute.
Hello. This is actually kind of what got me started in woodworking. I started learning to make these maybe 15 years ago, and I'm not very good at it. Some of them turn out excellent. At least half of them turn into firewood. Usually like 95% done, which is why I quit making them. It's kind of frustrating. But this one was kind of unique, and this is a project from nearly 12 years ago. I had a gentleman, because this is all made out of one piece of wood, minus the mouthpiece. Traditionally, you would take 2 pieces of wood, take a half circle out of each, glue them together, and it's a full circle, and then turn it on the lathe. I'd seen a guy who I swore was making them out of burl wood, out of one piece of wood. So I was like, it's got to be possible. I went to Craigslist. Some gentleman reached out and said he can do it. He basically was taking Forester bits and just adding extensions to them, and just was deep boring into it. I purchased 15 of those from him, and that is the only one that ever worked out. I will show you why. So here's what the front looks like. And this was, I cut it in half just to see because I figured it was going to be ruined. And that's, what's that? Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, so you could see how far his hole drifted by the time he got 15, 16 inches into it. See on that one. So here was the last one I tried to make. And I saw this little mark. I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. And I pushed on it, and I went right through it. Yeah. It just started to walk as you went. But yeah, this is the only one that ever fully, he actually did true. So it just kind of neat. And then I did a little bit of kind of burning work around the holes to kind of give it a little bit of, oh, might need the light on for that. Lamp? No?
I should do it.
Uh-huh.
There we go.
Yeah, so just kind of burn some hexagons around the holes. It makes it a little bit easier to find them, and then do a little bit of like kind of hatch work around them as well. But yeah, pretty neat. Anybody have any questions?
How did you burn those around the holes there? What did you use?
I'm like it's a detail master. I don't think they make them anymore, but it's like an electric. It's like a booster. I mean, it can get so hot you can push it through the wood. Yeah, I just used just like a really primitive like plastic stencil for the honeycomb, and then burned those initially first, and then just sat there with like a kind of a scalpel bit and just hatched all around it, just to kind of fill it in and give it some, a little bit of texture, a little something fun. Although it's always kind of like nerve-wracking, because you're like, if you do like one bad line, you know what I mean? I'm never gonna try to make one like this again. So I was just like, do I want to risk decorating this thing? You know what I mean? No, it turned out cool. Anybody have any questions?
Is there a reason you didn't center on his board when you put it on the lathe? Because that way you wouldn't be on his board.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess like from the front it was spot on, but like by the time it got this far, yeah.
But you centered on.
Oh, like kind of had it at an angle. I didn't realize if they were off or not, and like I didn't know which way they were off. Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was a way to figure that out. The few that I didn't attempt, I actually end up cutting them in half and turning them into something else, so like uprights for like trophies basically, because I was like, it was really nice wood. It was like cocobolo and a ton of exotic wood, so I spent some good money with that guy. And he did some awesome dimensioning for me, but yeah, he was off on that. So definitely going back to making them two pieces, it's just much easier to control.
What song are you going to play for us?
Well, I could give it a whirl.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like also too, like usually there's one hole out of all of them that doesn't work right, and that's like where they usually fail. And I probably made 30 or 40 of these, and maybe more, and most of them come out pretty good, but I've been able to not able to troubleshoot why they don't work, which is the most frustrating part. I've tried like a million things. I used to think it was maybe glue getting in the bore a little bit, but when they used to make them traditionally, they were just carving them out. And like a friend of mine takes tree branches, cuts them in half on the bandsaw, and hollows them by hand. So they're not symmetrically bored, and then he glues them back together. Yeah, and it looks like a branch still. It's wild. So I'm like, oh, it's not necessarily bore shape, but yeah, it's like the instrument making's, yeah, it can be crazy taxing. Oh yeah, thanks. But anyone else? Awesome. Thank you so much.
That is super cool. Yeah. Neil has a mini dead blow hammer. Can't wait to see this.
So I started playing with some copper embellishments on some of my wood turnings, and I wanted to add texture to them. So I went to the first usual tool you work with when you do textures, and that would be a Dremel. But the Dremel was kind of big and clunky, and it also skated across the surface when I didn't want it to. I tried a Fordham, and the flexible shaft on that was giving me a lot of problems. So I decided probably the best way is like they did it in the old time and just start whacking at it with the hammer. But the problem with whacking at it with a hammer is I kept getting inconsistent depth or the size of the dents that I wanted. And also noticed that as I would hit it with a metal hammer, I'd get that bounce, and that would take it off of where I first hit it. So if I wanted to make it deeper, I'd have to really carefully line it up. And then I started thinking, well, what will stop that bounce? And first thing came to my mind was a dead blow hammer. So I got on the internet and tried to find a small dead blow hammer. Couldn't find one. That meant I had to make one. So this is the dead blow hammer I came up with. The wood is African blackwood and brass for the two heads, and this part here has been hollowed out. The brass piece here and here were brass drawer knobs that I put on my small machinist lathe and turned them to size, and then some brass ferrules to keep the wood from splitting. Filled it up with about 2 ounces of birdshot, and now I have a very effective dead blow hammer. But what I needed was some complementary dead blow stamps. So I made the stamps for them, and had to finish these up in the past couple of days because I have a big project coming up that's going to tie me up for the next 3 to 5 weeks. And I knew if I didn't do it soon, I would either forget about it or I'd find something else I was more excited about making, and I wouldn't make this. So the stamps, I went with the wooden handle here because this way the different stamps that I make, I'll make out of different wood, and I'll be able to identify them without having to look to see what the stamp actually is. Because if this was brass parts here, I didn't want to get just ready-made stamps that are made out of steel because that would start messing up the brass. And the one thing that I also did on here to make this a little bit more of a multifunction, I've got the flat head here for striking the stamps, and over here I left it slightly round, and that becomes a planishing hammer. And one of the side benefits that I found having the dead blow is rather than bringing it down with force to get the indentations, which would give me a variable in the indentations, I find that with the dead blow, I can just let it fall. And on soft things like the copper, it puts a very consistent dent in it. And then I tried it just for the heck of it on wood, and it works on wood too. So now I can do texturing on wood, good dense woods as well. I made a little sample piece here that I'll pass around with the with everything, and that's pretty much it. So that solved the problem. Any questions?
What are the stamps on the end, so that does a texture in your copper or wood or whatever?
Yeah, what I have for right now is this one is a rounded, no, this one has a rounded surface, a rounded tip, which gives a rounded depression, and this one has a flat tip, which gives more of a circular depression. And I probably have at least 20 other type of stamps that I'm already thinking of how I'm going to make them. Okay.
How long did it take?
Started yesterday morning, finished this afternoon.
Sweet.
Well, had to get it done.
Okay, next we have Russell. If you are new or haven't been to show and share in a while, you may not know what I usually make, but Billy probably knows. It's a lamp. That's right, it's a lamp. Steve's wife contacted me clandestinely and wanted me to build him a lamp. He had some insulators, so we stole the insulators out of his house so that I could make a lamp out of it. And here's what we ended up with. So, keeping with the insulator theme, we used, whoa. Okay, here we go. Keeping with the insulator theme, we use an insulator on as the base also. They were redoing the major power lines through my neighborhood, and next door, where the right-of-way was, pardon me, I went down and asked the guys, said, hey, do you recycle those, or think I could have one of those insulators, which is what this is, but these are in a gang of about 6. It's the big ones on the high voltage poles. And they said, yeah, sure, here you go. So I'm lugging this thing up the street thinking, Rosemary's going to kill me dragging more junk into the garage. Well, as I neared the garage, I looked back, and here's 2 guys behind me, each carrying one of these also. So if anybody needs a giant insulator, I know a guy. So anyway, I used the giant insulator, some cable TV parts, lamp parts, and you may not be able to see it, but under the base there are tiny LED string lights, so that can be used as a night light. And then the other switch will turn on these insulators, and then a switch here to turn the actual lamp itself on. So I got it done literally the day before his birthday. So just in the nick of time. So as my friend Billy says, it's a lamp. Questions? Oh, there's a question.
You already know what the question is.
Probably off and on 3 weeks. I'd say I've got a good 20, 25 hours or so in it.
How much fret?
Fret time, oh man, lots of fret time on this one because it wasn't going to be this large or this complicated, and it just kept getting bigger. And so we ended up with this.
What do you use to polish the?
This part, it was like that. I just washed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just washed it. These were fairly dirty. I just threw them in the dishwasher. That does a pretty good job. And then Scotch-Brites always do a fair job. Brasso, believe it or not, works pretty good. One problem I did have, I was going to drill a hole through this to get all the way through. That is not going to happen. I don't know what kind of metal that is, but maybe Joe could help me figure out how to get there. So rather than going through the middle, I just went around the back because I can drill through the porcelain. I've got some little diamond hole saws that I can drill through glass and porcelain, that kind of stuff. What else? Yes, sir.
What's in the kind of top one that's kind of more like brilliant, like bluish light? Yeah, what's
Here,
Yeah.
it's just an LED.
Oh, okay. Is that high fan?
It's actually an LED in this little fixture here, just pointed into the insulator to light him up. What else we got? Neil?
Did you intend that to look like a hooker, or was that just a side benefit?
Oh, I guess that's just a benefit. I hadn't thought about that. Okay, yeah.
Oh, yes. I get it.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
Is the braiding, is that copper?
This is copper, uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah, that's copper,
That's awesome.
yeah. Yeah, materials on this one were, well, from what I did have to actually purchase, I had this already. There's no telling how much that stuff costs now. Copper braiding is, it's bound to be kind of expensive. What else we got? Anything? All right. Finally, it's a lamp. And thank you, Steve, for bringing it in so I could show it off. And happy birthday. Next and last but not least, Tracy has got the stitched map of Tennessee at last.
I haven't even shown it yet, but I'm sure you've all seen me carrying it around for the past months, but I finally finished it and mounted it. So here is the stitched map of Tennessee. It shows the geology of the bedrock. So how I did it was I went onto some geological state Tennessee website, and I found all of the different types of rocks there were across the state. I matched it up with the geological period in some mapping software and then simplified it a little bit because it was very complicated. I exported it as an image and had a program that took any image and turned it into a cross-stitch pattern. So it will match like colors and everything. I mean, I didn't care specifically about what colors because it's like it's not meant to be a photograph, but if you put a photograph in it, it will try and match the colors and make it look nice. And then I got to work, and Knoxville's on there. I marked Knoxville, right? It's hard to see in here, but it's right there. It's in the Cambrian period, which is why we have lots of limestone around here. And yeah, that is my project that's taken me a long time. Does anyone have any questions? Russell, you have to ask.
How long did it take, Tracy?
Well, I started by writing down every time I worked on it and how long, but that didn't last very long. But I can estimate that it takes the entirety of the series Babylon 5, including the specials, the whole thing. In the map portion, there are 18,600 stitches. So now I don't know what to do while I watch TV. So if anyone has any suggestions, I'm open to that. So.
Okay, that's all we had on the list. Anybody have anything? Toby has something? Okay. And then we've got something from Koopa.
As most of y'all know, I actually do a lot of 3D printing, scanning, and so forth. So this is also related. So my resin printer broke about 2 weeks ago, and I had to decline the phone call. I had to go ahead and repair it. So when you are resin printing, you're actually printing upside down and other way. So this is actually a friend that I scanned and printed the model of, and I'm actually going to show that as well to show off that my new scanner is getting a little bit better. So this one's about maybe 5 inches tall, and the scanning and all like that's getting a lot better on the scanning. So you can actually see the phone in the back pocket, and she's a bartender at Twin Peaks, so that was actually scanned at Twin Peaks in Knoxville. And so just because small ones do not do a bit of good under the cameras, I do have a larger one as well. So you can actually see the belt, the little ties, the little boot straps on the rubber boots, again the phone in the back pocket and so forth.
Where's the phone?
The phone's in the back pocket right over here on the side right here. And then the over here is actually the bottle opener, yeah. So, I mean, this one you can actually see the eyelids and everything, which the Xbox Connect that I started in 2015 does not have this detail at all, because you can see the wrinkles and the shorts and everything. So it's starting to get a little bit better. And then also, one more, because when you go ahead and add texturing to a model, it fools the eyes a little bit more. Load. And just so that way you can actually see the texturing of the scan as well. You can actually rotate the model and you can see the phone and the bar opener, tattoos and everything. And then material capture, so that way you can actually see that is actually the same scan and everything. So that was my little deal trying to put together that. And believe it or not, underneath the bottom part of the stand, I'm going to put a little cone. I'm going to put the 3/8 inch tapped screw hole on there, and she's going to be her own bar tap handle. So, and when I get that printed, I'll bring that in for show and share, so that way you can actually see it, because I've got the whole faucet part of it and everything, so that way you'll see it like it's actually pulled from the tap.
How long does it take to scan like a
Whole person's probably about 3.5 or 4 minutes at the most. The little small one was 6 hours. The big one was about 12-hour print. Yes.
What's the largest object you can scan?
The largest object that I've scanned was a H.G. Wells time machine, full size. So that was at a comic convention with the Xbox Connect, and I literally walked around it and scanned it. So, I mean, as far as taking pieces and parts, you can always stitch them together and make them bigger and bigger and bigger. I took my iPad Pro when I first got it, the 2021 model, and I LiDAR scanned my brother's house, all the interior. So I actually 3D scanned the complete interior of his house. He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm scanning your house because it's cool." And he's like, "Okay." He said, "I want a model of that." He said, "So send it to me." And at the time, the program had a CAD export function to it. So he exported it in CAD during the trial version. And he's like, "Okay, now I can go ahead and measure my cabinets out and all like that." I was like, "Okay, well, we actually did something functional with it." So I do some crazy things, but yes. This one was done with a one from a company called Revo Point, and it's the newest one that just come out this year. It's the Range. They actually make a little. I've got another one that scans little miniatures. This one scans big stuff, and they're actually got intermediate scanners that scan middle objects. This one was also done on a turntable that you stand on, and it rotates you, so that way I scan from the top of the head down to the bottom of the boots. So literally, as she turned, it literally took the depth data and put it into the program and took photos to do the colorizations as well. Yes, sir.
With the Connect programming, like a freely available program?
No, it was a $150 program that, and mostly the Connect softwares, because the hardware hasn't been for sale in a long time, everybody's pretty much will abandon all the software that's been decent for those. So that's gone out the window. And the scanner and the turntable together was on Kickstarter when I got it was $800. So I went up in my price range, but yet I'm using all the new gadgets and all like that, but I'm trying to still stay under the $1,000 range for the scanners because well, I like to buy gadgets and stuff, so I spend money quick if I want to go ahead and get a big purchase product. Yes.
I don't know if you know this, but are you able to say into a Fun Museum and scan it? Or do you need special?
Oh, you would definitely need permission to go ahead and do that in a heartbeat.
I'm just wondering how the policy.
I have actually scanned a historical item before. I can't say what I scanned, but it was, well, the item is actually a silver bowl and all like that, which does not do good with 3D scans, but I used talcum powder and put on it, which allowed me to get the actual scan to not reflect the light back to it. I have done that, but I did that as a personal project. And it was okay, but at the time with the Connect, it was not the quality that they needed for museum quality. But with the new scanner that I've got, I could actually do that with no problem. Down to like 1/3 of a millimeter error tolerance. So, yeah. Any other questions? So, yeah, I'm crazy, but I try to learn something new every time.
You got something, Cooper? Yeah. All right, do it. If I can get this, there we go.
So I just wanted to give a little update on the tool changing 3D printer that I've been building at home. The last, I guess, 5 or 6 months, I decided to go ahead and buy some upgrade parts. So I went ahead and bought a new extruder, a new hot end, and all that. And so, just checking out this video right here. This is it printing. Yeah. So this is printing a little 2-color Pikachu, and it actually has 2 separate hot ends, so it goes and docks one and picks up the second one. This older tool head design still needs to be basically purged every time, which is a big mess, and kind of you end up with a lot of little strings of filament that can get caught and stuff. So you'll notice when this layer finishes right here, the new tool actually has a little like a high temp silicone pad that it rests the nozzle on that just kind of plugs it up while it's running. So this tool doesn't need any kind of priming or clearing out when it switches to it. So you'll notice it just runs straight to the print. And I've just been kind of dialing this in the last couple of weeks. And to show y'all a little bit of what I made, the first thing I've done is a little dog tag for my parents' dog, just in orange and black. I've got a little model Tennessee here that I'm kind of thinking about maybe trying to put like magnets or like a safety pin or something on this and have something that I can sell. I know my sister does a lot of crafty Etsy kind of stuff, so I'm kind of I've kind of been thinking about how I can get in on that action a little bit. This is my favorite thing that I've made so far, is just a little jack-o'-lantern guy. And I'm really happy with how these things are starting to turn out. It's kind of a lot of work. I mean, kind of as much work as it is to just tune a 3D printer to one filament so that you get good print results. It's kind of a lot of extra steps in getting two 3D printers tuned exactly the same. And so having them sort of calibrated to each other has been the biggest challenge. On the Tennessee, I don't know if it'll show up on the video, but you can kind of see there's little gaps on one side. So it's not, one nozzle is slightly out of place from the other one, but that's kind of some of the stuff I've been working on. But that was kind of just all I wanted to show off. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
So changing the S is for coloring, or is just different type of filament that you might have?
So yeah, the idea is that you can have multiple filaments or multiple colors. Right now, I'm just kind of getting everything dialed in, doing multicolor prints. The next thing I kind of want to get into is multi-material printing. One thing that I found that is pretty neat, I've always loved the idea of like, there are dissolvable support materials that are water or lye or whatever, alcohol soluble. But those can be really expensive, and I know that they're kind of difficult to work with as well. One thing I found online is that PLA and PETG will sort of stick together, but once they cool off, they don't stick together very well. So something that I've experimented in the past that I'm looking forward to getting back into soon is using PLA as the main material and then PETG as the support material, and you don't have to, normally you kind of have to leave a little gap when you make your support material, or it just fuses the model to the support material, and you end up sort of dropping the filament onto your support, and you get a really bad bottom layer. But with the dual material setup, you don't have to have any gap at all, and so the underside of the print will basically look as good as the top side of the print. So that's something I think that's kind of right now the biggest thing that I'm working on, because I think that really opens up a lot of different opportunities. But I know people have also experimented with like PLA and softer material like TPU, so that you have parts that are very rigid and brittle in some areas but are extremely flexible in others. So that's kind of something else I'm looking into at the moment. But right now it's just kind of just getting the thing together and running, which it seems like it's coming along pretty well. Yep.
You know your print speed off the top of your head?
The default setting is like 100 or 120 millimeters a second. The printer runs Clipper, so I have a lot of that input shaping and different things like that, so it can kind of, you can start turning the speed up a lot. But the reason I actually went to Clipper was because Marlin just didn't have all of the sort of tools that I needed. They don't really, there's not a lot of slicers and not a lot of firmwares that are really intended to do stuff like this, so there's kind of a lot of hacking stuff and a lot of writing my own macros and stuff, so that's been a big learning experience as well. Is anybody else? Thanks.
Thank you, Cooper. Anybody else? All right, got another one. Sweet. Oh, you're good. That's why we're here.
My name's Jeff Holmes, and I'm trying to start my own consulting business, but I do have some projects I'd share.
But I was here mainly just to get some networking and stuff. But I have a master's in applied mathematics from University of Tennessee, and recently I got a master's in artificial intelligence, so I'm an expert at software engineering. I've done projects in NLP, natural language processing. I've done robots and stuff, so the robot dog, keep it simple. Pick 3 or 4 things and stick with that. So anyway, but yeah, I basically would like to try to, network and get, but I mean, mainly my stuff's more, the head. So I've done, probably on Discord and Slack, I've probably consulted on probably 24 projects in the last 2 years. And everything from someone's master's project to, let's see, what was the other one? To commercial projects. It was a Mercury OS operating system for tablets. So, but the biggest thing I'm proud of is my Medium articles, and I created a repo of to learn AI. Basically, it's all my notes from my master's projects and stuff as I create articles. So it's got pretty much anything to do with AI as far as learning it. I've got notes in there about stuff, and I've also created like a Obsidian, which lets you publish markup, but it makes it nice and pretty and searchable. So, because I didn't want to turn my GitHub into a website, I started thinking about it and said, this has got to be an easier way. So Obsidian, basically to use the app, it's free, but to publish, it costs money. So anyway, but that, if you're interested in AI, and the problem is people don't realize that it's been documented that 85 to 90% of AI projects fail, and self-taught's just not going to work. Okay, and I've interviewed with Google and Facebook, and Meta had 200 projects, and they were wanting to bring me on. I said, no. Look, 90% of AI projects fail. You should have 4 or 5, not 200. And then within 2 weeks, they announced the massive layoffs. In fact, there's articles in Washington Tribune, I think, or something. Meta, Facebook, hired hundreds of AI experts and just sat on them. They did nothing for 6 months, and then they got laid off. So AI is the first thing that you need to do to start with is learn the history. Because in the 70s, AI took off, and then there were multi-$100 million projects, and the government realized that, this is hype. So there's a lot of alchemy in AI. Elon Musk put $1 billion in OpenAI for a robotics project that was never feasible from the start, and they blew through $1 billion in 2 years, and I'm going, why? And then they said, oh, we don't have the data. That's why robots are not walking around, is because they can't overcome the technical safety issues, and it takes a lot of data. And just on the note, public roads are not for beta testing autonomous vehicles. Sorry. Really nervous. Sorry.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much. Anybody else? All right. Well, we have a couple of announcements. One is that we have AC in the welding shop. Yeah. We always knew that Joe was super cool, and now he's even cooler. If you hadn't heard, there's going to be a makers market. Woohoo! Yay, a leaky pretty soon. So we are just thrilled that vendors were just crawling over each other to get signed up. We filled up within a day and a half, and people are still applying for spots. So it's turning out to be a very popular event. So now, rather than scrambling to try to find vendors, now it's time to start promoting. So you can grab off of Mattermost. There are some files on there that you can post on your very own social media. There are bookmarks on the hospitality table you can take and spread around here, there, and yonder, as well as a couple of news releases and other things. So it's time to start talking it up and let people know what's up. Since it's going to be a big event, we also need volunteers. There's a volunteer sign-up sheet in hospitality as well. If you don't know specifically what you'd like to do, just sign up and just put in write down, put me in, coach, show up, and we will definitely put you to work. We need all the hands that we can get, and we would certainly appreciate that. Normally, at this time, we would ask for volunteers for garbage and air filters, but our new cleaning service actually does the garbage now, and they're doing a terrific job, so thanks to everybody who, the people that made that possible, doing the research and finding somebody. I think Sue did a lot of that, Tracy too maybe. Thank you. Also, I want to thank, let's see, Neil and Tom and Ray that helped me figure out how to make that itty bitty LED under that lamp light up, because I don't know about electricity. I tend to plug things in and it causes sparks and smoke and fire and stuff. But they helped me avoid that this time. But we do need volunteers for air filters. If we could get somebody that's not afraid of the ladder to do that. Who wants to do air filters today? Don't everybody? Oh, look at that. We have a volunteer. Thank you, sir. Yeah, air handlers in woodworking as well. Any woodworking type people in here? Nobody does woodworking? All right. Okay, Keith will do it. Oh. I'll show you how. Change the air filters in the air handlers. I'll show you how to do it. It's easy. Easy peasy. All right. Any other announcements from anybody? Okay, I think that's it. Just keep the market top of mind. Aliki does a terrific job making that happen, and we really appreciate her and Joe and all the people that are making that thing go. So with that, let's go to the shop and talk and tell some tall tales and make something, tear something up, and have a good time. Thank you all for being here.